Hello everyone, this is me, Pablo Moncayo. This is Diego Valles. He lives in Mata Ortiz, Chihuahua, Mexico. At home, he does pottery. Few months ago, he came to Taliesin West as the artist in residence, where he made some pots and had a great exhibition. Diego invited us to his hometown when he left Taliesin West. A group of students and I went there during our spring break, and we were there only for like 4 days. I knew I was going to have a lot of fun driving with my friends until I looked back in the mirror and I find out that they rather sleep in the car as I drive. The first one to put his head down was Nick. Within the first 10 minutes, Nick closed his eyes and bent down as if he was praying. Andre was having a hard time keeping his posture. Pierre just made himself comfortable and bent to the side, followed by Edgar, and finally, Brian. E was the only one awake, but she took pictures of herself all the way there.
Hello, my name is Andre Van Belkom, and on March 21st I awoke on Terra at 5 in the morning. By 6, E, Pablo, Edgar, Nick, Brian, Pierre, and I jumped into a minivan and rode off from Taliesin West to a village of potters in Mata Ortiz, Mexico. We stopped for breakfast at the Gadsden Hotel in Douglas, Arizona. Brian suggested we stop and admire the stained glass. Arriving at the border, E was struck with the power of steel and the limits of property. Meanwhile, Pablo battled a 2-hour document transaction, arriving victorious with all the necessary materials. Edgar got situated in his chair, and we were off to Mexico. We drifted along the Sonoran Desert as it stretched through Mexico. Soon we came on the state line of Chihuahua. The land was beautiful and vast. I spotted an ancient site in the distance, a ritual site to the ancestors of Paquime and Juan Mata Ortiz. Shortly after, El Indio came into view, and I knew Juan Mata Ortiz was just ahead. We drove through the gates of Juan Mata Ortiz. Arriving at the home of Diego Valles, he and his family welcomed us with food, spirits, and stories.
Hi, my name is Pierre Verbruggen. Mata Ortiz is a poor village in Chihuahua, north of Mexico. However, a wonderful community is taking over, and peace and happiness is growing on the horizon. As you might know, Mata Ortiz has an amazing culture of the key pottery, and Diego Valles, one of the greatest artists of this village, has generously guided us into this beautiful community. So as you can see, here is a parade with kids on the top of the car. They are dressed up with a weird costume. Just kidding, that was pretty cute. I would have loved doing that when I was a kid. Once again, smiles is all around us. For this trip, I wanted to focus on the painting because I knew that Mexican house are pretty colorful. The blue house is an interpretation of Frida's house. A lot of Coca and Sprite advertisements were painted by hands against the wall, and the calligraphy was so cool, painted by hands as well. Tacos al piporo. Mexican food has never really attracted me because spicy food is not my cup of tea. However, the food was amazing and the tacos was the best I ever eaten. Where Diego brought us to private pottery artist house, so we could not only buy them cheaper but also see the richness of the pottery culture that people make in Mata Ortiz. Here's Pablo with a pottery that won a big prize and so pretty expensive. So don't break it. Whoa, look those shiny pottery. They are shaped like a drop water and your face mirror weird on it. There on the right side you can see the artist on the picture frame that has made all those pottery. In this house we could feel how poor the owner was. He had to show us his pottery plus later all the family, in his small bedroom. There I bought two pots, not only for their beauty but also because it was one of the property that needed the most.
If we were the bad kind of students, we would have turned our hotel lobby into a beer pong tournament, the hotel's dining room into a beer competition, go to clubs and party until the next day. But because we're not that kind of students, we decided to go and explore the ancient dwellings in Mata Ortiz. We hiked many mountains, we crossed rivers, some of us were walking, Pierre was jumping, and Edgar,
Oh, that's awesome.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think about it every night and day.
At some point, after Brian got stuck under a chicken wire fence, we got hungry, so we stopped under a tree, sit on a rock, and have our lunch. There is nothing like eating outdoors and enjoying nature.
Hola, my name is Edgar Irakidza. In our visit to Mata Ortiz, our dear friend Diego Valles took us to many fantastic places. One of them is the local ruins called Cueva de la Olla. Cueva de la Olla can be translated as the cave of the pot. The cave is located on top of the mountain. The location was chosen for climate and safety reasons. When my classmates and I arrived at the cave, we noticed first the imposing round building and then the smaller and rectangular buildings in the background. We were told that the building that looks like a pot was a granary for the community that used to live there in 5500 BCE. The granary was very important because they used it to store corns, beans, and other grains. Other buildings were used as living rooms or bedrooms. Diego explained to us that a granary in general would have one opening, but this one had multiple openings due to the decay. Diego and the guide also pointed out the walls of the other buildings used to go all the way up to the ceiling of the cave. When looking at the rectangular buildings, I noticed that there were two different types of walls. The first wall was made of a T-shaped door and a large window. This space was used as a living space, therefore needed a lot of light. On the other hand, the second wall had a small rectangular door only and was used as a sleeping space. This space did not need a lot of light. This was my first time visiting ruins and it was a great experience.
Hey, I'm E. I'm the only girl in this trip. Well, thanks to Maria. No, just kidding. I'm the one in blue. The area that I will cover is the Cueva de la Golondrina, which means the Cave of the Swallow. I joined this study trip to Mata Ortiz to learn, experience, and enjoy the rich culture. We hike the nature, experience the food, admire exquisite potteries, and meet great people. Little did I notice that there are plans to seek for the Taliesin South. Cueva de la Golondrina shows occupation back to 5500 BC. One of the earliest sites in all of Mexico. I'll be sharing two caves that we explored. The first cave, so it's like Taliesin, there's no keys needed. We hiked through the barbed wires and viewed the first cave in awe. It was amazing. We enter the cave. The Taliesin students are so excited that they found a new shelter site. This is an overview of the potential student shelter. Nick is there for human scale. The interior spaces. The tourists. Some of us are so excited we try out new spaces and maybe look for one. Andre showing the proportion of release and compression, and the views, daylighting. Attached to the first cave is this site. We check out the awesome space. It's shaded, it has nature daylighting, it is cozy. It's just the perfect student lounge. Okay, Edgar and E, it's time to go. So we cross the field and climb the stairs, no, actually the rocks. It looks easy, but man, it's definitely not too cold. Finally, we reach the top. We're welcomed by the petroglyphs done centuries back. After taking some pictures, everyone picked a spot to meditate and choose their own shelter. Pablo found his. Nick found his next to the petroglyphs while taking picture for the next quarterly, titled View of Taliesin South. Edgar negotiating for one, and Pierre is still thinking. Andre quickly claimed his shelter site, while Andre's seniority. Diego checking out our reaction and realized that we really enjoy the idea of the new Taliesin South. He meditates for a little and thought about it and discussed the idea with Brian. This is the great view that we will have, and it would be a great shelter site or even a studio. We all get down with great satisfaction. I struggled with a little help from Andre and Pierre. So we march down, march across, and back to the entrance. Diego quickly shared a logo design for the new Taliesin South. Mata Ortiz, or the new Taliesin South, is a great place to start a PhD degree for architecture. Since the US-Mexico border is just 4 hours away from Diego's house, and the visa for crossing the border lasted for 6 months, so what are we waiting for? The weather was beautiful, but it was crazy windy. Here's a video to give you an idea.
My name is Nick Abely, and as a part of our trip to Mata Ortiz, we drove to Casas Grandes to visit the ruins of Paquime, one of the most significant archaeological sites in northwestern Mexico. Native Americans built Paquime between 1130 and 1300. The settlement included a cluster of houses and sites for spiritual ceremonies, including a large cross-shaped mound oriented exactly with the cardinal directions. Paquime also had an extensive water system that included underground drainage, reservoirs, and channels for water to get to the homes. The original settlement was burned and then rebuilt with multi-story buildings. Paquime eventually consisted of about 2,000 rooms built of adobe. Only a portion of the settlement has been fully excavated by archaeologists. Another important aspect of the site are the T-shaped doorways, which are a signature design element of Paquime, but also seen in many native settlements across the Southwest. We also had the opportunity to tour the Museum and Cultural Center,
The design of the museum building draws its inspiration from the materials used by the native settlers and includes an outdoor amphitheater and rooftop view of the whole site, in addition to its extensive collections. The museum details the culture of Pakime, including objects in copper, seashells, ceramics, and clay pots, which shows that Pakime was a hub for trade between southern Mesoamerica and northern Pueblo cultures. Maps show that Pakime is aligned on the same longitudinal axis as Chaco Canyon, Gila Cliff, and Mesa Verde, only off by a few miles. This discovery, along with the similarities in architectural features, hint that the settlers of Pakime were probably linked to the people of these other southwestern settlements. Looking at the extensive collection of original Pakime pottery gave us the chance to see the main artistic influence for the modern Renaissance in Mata Ortiz pottery today.
Unfortunately, it was time to go back to school because spring break was over. Diego wanted to send a message to everyone at Taliesin, but of course, I had to make sure he did his joy list at home first.
I'm so happy these guys are living. Hi Taliesin, come to Mata Ortiz.
There were a few things that caught our attention. For example, the column holding this roof, the rock holding the entire structure because of the wind, and my favorite one, the piggy banks for sale at the border. I learned that Winnie the Pooh has a twin brother named Foo. We want to thank the school and the student fund for making this trip possible because we had an amazing time and we learned a lot.